For the community, it begins to cross the bridges. Astoria is one of the most diverse communities in the world.
Yeah.
And so what we're looking at is, how do we cross the bridges? How do we build these bridges generationally? Also between the various ethnic groups and the various faith groups. So we build our community up. The businesses in the area benefit because as the kids are able to get tutoring, able to have the resources they need, they're going to improve their ability and their economic income levels. The parents benefit, everyone benefits,
In
and
fact,
that's what we're working towards.
when churches bring communities together by building these bridges, they sort of develop a common market that businesses can tap into.
Yes.
That way, businesses don't have to spend money developing niche products for different markets. They can achieve economies of scale that help improve efficiency and productivity.
And I look at it, it also gives them a workforce.
Yes.
If we're able to, because the kids, and we realize the kids are the key to get into these families. So the parents come, their kids say, I want to go to this program. The parents come, and we're then able to bring them together for support groups, for English classes, for skill training for businesses, computer training, so that they're not working on the low scale, but beginning to get into a higher economic scale. And so the kids then benefit, the parents benefit, and the community benefits. And for the businesses, this gives them a reason to invest in. That they're looking and saying, okay, this provides us with a better workforce.
Yes. And in fact, it's at this point that I think I should make it clear why social entrepreneurship is such an important concept in today's world. In my classes as a political science teacher, I try to help the students understand that the three fundamental building blocks of any society are the family, that's obvious.
Right.
Historically, there's also the church,
Right.
and then beyond that, there are these other sort of merchant type organizations. You know, people are very comfortable buying and selling products. If you go
Yes.
into any town, there will always be a small town square. There'll be a mercado or a small market. Whether you go to Spain or Morocco or Costa Rica, you'll find a bazaar. And those are three fundamental elements of any society.
Well, and the bazaars used to be housed in the cathedrals. They were in the courtyards of the cathedrals in the towns. That's where the merchants would come because that's where the people were. And yeah, this is, in one sense, what we're doing is going back to the cathedral model. It's not as large, but it's providing the needs of the community and becoming a community center once more. The church had withdrawn from community. Many of the studies now show that one reason mainline churches are dying is they've become irrelevant to people.
Yeah.
They walked in the door, and it didn't talk about the people's needs.
Yeah.
It talked about getting to heaven, but it didn't talk about their needs here and now.
Yeah.
And it didn't help them with those needs. The minister would say, I'll pray for you. But not sit down and say, okay, let's look and find a solution. Let's help you.
Well, I think you're right. This cathedral model is important, and the reason is because if you look over the long-term history, capitalism is a very recent invention.
Yes.
In terms of especially industrial capitalism, having large investment to produce cars and houses and refrigerators and all the other things we associate with middle class lifestyle. But when you have that kind of industrial capitalism, it tends to push aside the other core elements of society. It pushes aside the church, it pushes aside the family, and it pushes aside these sort of normal, everyday business skills that people have. Because if you're working for a corporation, you're spending so much time working for the corporation, you cannot spend the time in church or in the family. So what I try to tell my students is that the idea of a social entrepreneur is to bring balance back into society, to restore these components to their rightful order. And we're not going to eliminate corporations, obviously, but we want to at least show people that the values of the corporation, acquisitiveness, consumption, are not the values of a human being. The values of a human being are family, faith, and community.
Well, taking that, last week, 2 weeks ago, I guess, it came out that 50 of the hedge fund executives, top hedge fund executives, made $29 billion.
One person made $3.7 billion alone.
Right.
Yes.
So when you begin to look at that, and I'm talking about a community of 250,000 to 500,000 people whose average income is $50,000 for a whole family, it begins to show that we've gotten very skewed in what's happening. And it leads to the Enrons, it leads to the view that we can do what we want because we have the money, and we're not going to be responsible for the people. If that continues, the gap grows, and you're going to have social protest and revolution.
Yes.
So what we're trying to do is to raise the level and to balance it, to teach the folks making the $3.7 billion that they have social responsibility. And at the same time, to say to the folks at the lower end of the scale, you have hope. There are things you can do, and you're valued. I think a part for me on social entrepreneurship is valuing those you're serving and helping them value themselves. As a church, yes, you come to church and you can come for free. We're not going to make you pay to get in. But when you start talking services for the piano classes, yes, we charge.
Yeah.
A part of that's for the reason of we've got to pay our bills, but the other part is, over 30 years now, I finally learned what people don't pay for, they tend not to value. Even if they pay $1, they will make a commitment and they will be there.
Yeah.
But if they don't pay, they're not going to show up. They're going to be hit or miss because they begin to feel like they're charity cases and like they don't matter, and the service doesn't matter because it doesn't cost anything.
Yes. Well, it's in that regard that I think we should talk about not just how to restore the balance in society, but how to create a merger of principles. Because when you talk about a business, what you're really talking about is the accurate assessment of people's wants and needs, which is what a church is supposed to do anyway.
Right.
And delivering products and services to help people meet those wants and needs. But when you start talking about monetary income and values, I think we have changed the notion of value to say that something is only important if it has money attached to it.
Yes.
And I think it's important for churches and businesses to cooperate and demonstrate that money is an important aspect, but the value comes from yourself. There must be some input from your own individuality, your own creativity that makes it important, and the money is a product of that.
I'll give a couple of examples, and I agree with you. One, when I went to our church board and said we need to do strategic planning, met a great deal of resistance. We don't need to plan. What I began to realize was none of them knew how to plan. They had always been a part of implementing a plan, but they've never been a part of making a plan.
Yeah.
So helping them gain a skill set, and they're beginning to feel better about it, and finding out I can do this, and it lets the church become focused so that my money that I give to the church accomplishes more. Here I just realized this, we were teaching our kids social entrepreneurship without even thinking about it. Our music director helped, Danny, who's behind the cameras here, helped. The kids wanted the piano lab. They were coming to our music director and saying, we want to learn to play piano. And we said, fine, we would love that. We don't have a piano. So we decided to work with them. If they could raise money, we would find other money so they could have the piano out. But the deal was, half the money they raised had to go to a charity. But they got to pick the charity.
Yeah.
So the kids looked and they decided to go with Operation Smile so that they could help other kids throughout the world, kids who have hair
Even
lips.
the word makes you smile.
Yeah. Well, and kids with hair lips and cleft palates, doctors donate their time, and for $250, they can perform an operation in a third world country. So the kids thought this would be great because we're going to make them smile, we're going to smile, it's going to be a great